Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating material you sent over. It looks like transcripts from tours, discussions, all centered on the Western Wall excavations in Jerusalem.
That's right. A really rich set of sources.
So our mission today is to dive into these and pull out the most compelling stuff.
Yeah.
What makes this site so important, so enduring? Really get beyond just the surface level facts.
Exactly. It's a great chance to explore what's happening with the digs at the southern wall of the Temple Mount. I mean, you're talking layers upon layers of history there.
Yeah.
And understanding the people who walked there and why it still matters so much to different groups today.
Okay, let's get into it. One of the first things that really jumped out from these sources was this feeling of actually being there. Standing on the original Roman-era steps, southern wall of the Temple Mount. We're talking Herodian period, 1st century BCE.
Yeah, built under Herod.
Pretty rare to find something that intact from that long ago in Israel, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then you start thinking, okay, who actually walked up these steps?
Right.
The sources paint this picture of a really bustling place, especially, during the big pilgrimage festivals.
Imagine that scene. Hundreds of thousands of people. 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, the scale is hard to grasp.
All heading up towards the temple. The sound. It must have been incredible. People speaking different languages, maybe. And music. The transcripts mention drums, violins, harps.
A real sensory experience heading towards this incredibly sacred space. Not just a crowd, but a collective movement.
And it wasn't just a free-for-all, right? There was some order to it.
Well, yeah. The Mishnah, that's the core text of Jewish oral law, written down around the 2nd century CE. There's a part, Tractate Midah, it describes the temple layout, and it talks about the customs for the gates. Generally, you'd go in on the right, come out on the left.
Oh, interesting.
But there were exceptions. This is kind of cool.
Okay.
If you were newly married, or if you were in mourning, you'd actually enter from the left.
Ah, so you'd stand out.
Exactly. It made you noticeable. So people could offer, blessings if you were newlyweds, or words of comfort if you were grieving.
Wow, that's social consideration built right into the flow of people.
Right. And the steps themselves, the design, some narrow, some wide. The idea was maybe to stop people rushing headlong towards the Temple Mount, to encourage a certain reverence.
So architecture shaping behavior.
Precisely. It wasn't just about crowd control. It embedded empathy, community support right into the physical act of approaching the holy site. For Jewish people, then, this place, it wasn't just important. It was, as the sources say, the beating heart.
The absolute center of their world, their memory.
Yeah.
But it's not only significant in Jewish history, is it? The Christian connections mentioned are, well, profound too.
Oh, absolutely. The New Testament mentions the Temple Mount constantly.
So what kind of events are we talking about?
Well, think about Jesus' life. Being brought to the temple as a baby, the story of Simeon recognizing him, and then later, the account of Jesus as a 12-year-old, talking with the elders. That happened in the royal portico, which was right up above these southern steps we're talking about.
Directly above this area. Wow.
Yeah. And the sources also touch on other things. The money changers in the temple area.
Ah, yes, that famous story.
The temptations of Satan, Jesus' prophecies about the temple's destruction. It all connects back to this physical place.
It really grounds those biblical stories, doesn't it? Makes them tangible.
It does. And the discussions mention that for Christian pilgrims, there's often this intense focus on Jesus's individual story within that larger historical tapestry.
Which brings up the whole interfaith aspect.
Yeah.
The sources mention people reflecting on how visiting this site feels different from, say, just going to a church or a synagogue.
Yeah, there seems to be this sense of connecting to something broader, a shared history almost between the Abrahamic faiths.
Like it transcends denominations sometimes. Feeling like, I think one source put it, God's house in a more universal way.
Something like that. And it's worth remembering, as the transcripts note, the temple courts weren't solely for Jews. Gentiles, non-Jews could access certain outer areas too.
So it was always a place of, well, some level of interaction between different groups.
Definitely. And learning about that intertwining of cultures and faiths right here over centuries, it really broadens your perspective on the site's significance.
Okay, so let's talk about the gates themselves, the Huldah Gates. We can still see the arches on the southern wall.
That's right. 3 blocked up arches remain. Those are the Huldah Gates. You can't go through them now, obviously.
And the name Huldah. There are different ideas about where that came from.
Yeah, 2 main interpretations mentioned. One connects it to the prophetess Huldah.
From the Bible. Kings?
Exactly. 2 Kings 22. She prophesied destruction after the discovery of the Torah scroll during King Josiah's reforms. So naming the entrance gates after her, maybe a reminder or an honor.
Interesting link. And the other idea?
It's more descriptive. It might come from the Hebrew word for mole or mouse, like a mouse hole, because the original passageways apparently went underneath the platform first and then ramped up onto the Temple Mount itself. So not a grand direct entrance, but more like burrowing up from below.
I see, like emerging from underground.
Kind of, yeah.
Now, beyond those gates, the archaeology, the Davidson Center nearby showcases more finds.
Well, yeah. They found all sorts. The sources mention a gate, possibly from the First Temple period, which is much earlier.
Wow.
And lots of ritual baths, mikvehs, which pilgrims would have used for purification before going up.
Gives you real sense of the preparation involved.
Definitely. And while the Huldah Gates and Robinson's Arch, that huge collapsed archway nearby, are key for the Second Temple story, there's also the option, as mentioned, to see remains of the later Umayyad palaces from the Islamic period. Though, understandably, many Jewish and Christian groups focus more on the earlier periods relevant to their narratives.
And it's good that sources clarified some naming things. Like the Tower of David, not actually David's.
Right, that's Herodian. Same with the area sometimes called Solomon's Stables. That structure is also from Herod's time. The names came much later, connecting them to these iconic earlier figures.
It helps to keep the timeline straight. Now, you mentioned the ritual baths and the Street of Pilgrims.
Yes, this main pathway leading up to the southern entrance. Imagine it lined not just with ritual baths, but also shops.
Selling what? Souvenirs? Sacrifices?
Probably things needed for the temple, visit animals for sacrifice, maybe pure oils, incense, and yes, handling currency exchange, the money changers.
Bringing us back to that New Testament story.
Exactly. And amazingly, archaeologists apparently found what might have been one of their tables, or at least a stone bench, overturned in the destruction layer along that street.
No way.
Yeah, it provides this incredibly tangible physical link to that specific account.
That's amazing. But then comes the destruction. 70 CE, the Roman siege.
A very stark layer in the archaeology. The sources talk about the sheer amount of debris, the toppled stones, just immense destruction.
1,600 tons of stone, one transcript estimated. Just thrown down.
It gives you a visceral sense of the violence, the finality of it, and connects directly to why Jewish tradition has fast days commemorating the temple's fall.
But then there's something else found in that destruction layer, isn't there? Something hopeful.
Incredibly, yes. Amidst all that devastation, carved into one of those massive, fallen Herodian stones, graffiti.
Graffiti from when?
Dated to maybe around 1,600 years ago. Long after the destruction, maybe 4th or 5th century CE, a Jewish person, it seems, came back to the ruins.
I wrote something.
Chiseled it right into the stone. A quote from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 66.
What does it say?
It speaks of future prosperity, of comfort for Jerusalem, of descendants flourishing like grass. Rejoice with Jerusalem, you shall be comforted in Jerusalem. Your bones shall flourish like an herb.
Wow. To carve that right there amidst the ruins.
It's profoundly moving. An act of faith, of hope, literally etched onto the evidence of despair.
A layer of hope, as the sources called it.
Precisely. And that really encapsulates how the Western Wall itself, just a retaining wall of the old temple platform, became such a powerful symbol of hope over the centuries.
Especially the last few hundred years.
Right. It became the focal point for prayers, for that yearning expressed in next year in Jerusalem.
There was that story in the transcripts from Auschwitz.
Yes, incredibly powerful. A Jewish man in the depths of the Holocaust declaring in Hebrew, next year in Jerusalem rebuilt.
Even then, that hope persisted.
It shows the resilience, doesn't it? The kotel, the wall, it embodies so much. Sorrow for the past, yes, but also this enduring hope, connection, and even that idea of tikkun olam, repairing the world.
And the stones themselves, the Herodian ones,
Yeah.
they're pretty impressive pieces of engineering too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The masonry is remarkable. Huge, carefully cut stones with those distinctive drafted margins, the frames.
The massive things, some weighing many tons.
And originally. Probably dazzling white limestone, maybe even adorned with gold in places. Josephus, the historian, wrote that it could blind you in the sunlight.
An incredible sight. And the fact that these enormous stones were literally thrown down, that's undeniable proof of the destruction.
Tangible evidence. And then, that extra little discovery finding Hebrew letters carved onto some of them, still readable after 2,000 years.
Just amazing. Like a direct message from the past.
It really is.
One last thing from the sources, the connection to Shabbat, the Sabbath.
Ah, yes, Josephus again. He described how they signaled the start of Shabbat from a corner of the Temple Mount on Friday afternoon
How did they do that?
with trumpet blasts. 3 distinct blasts, apparently, a signal that the holy day was approaching, time to close shops, stop work, and welcome Shabbat.
And that weekly rhythm, it's continued for millennia.
It has, within Judaism, obviously, but that concept of a weekly day of rest, of holiness, it influenced the Christian Sabbath. It resonates within Islam, too. Deep roots, right back here.
So wrapping this up,
Mm.
we've really covered a lot. Layers of history, the people who walked here, the connections between faiths.
And the archaeology bringing it all to life, both the grandeur and the destruction, and that thread of hope running through it all.
These excavations, they really do give you a powerful connection to the past, don't they? Makes those old stories feel very real.
Definitely. Which maybe leaves us with a final thought, something to ponder from all this.
Okay.
When you look at a place like this, with such immense history, so many layers, so many different meanings for different people, what does it actually mean for a place to be holy?
Mm.
And how does the physical reality of it, the stones, the steps, the ruins, how does that keep shaping and maybe reshaping our understanding of its significance over thousands of years?
That's a deep question. Something definitely worth thinking about after this dive.
Yeah. Food for thought.
Well, thank you for sharing your sources with us, and thanks everyone for joining us on this deep dive.